I'm getting sick and tired of what I'm hearing from both sides of the aisle. I'm getting sick and tired of hearing Democrats tell us they'll do one thing and then do the other, and then Republicans telling us they'll do one thing and then not doing anything at all. Congress has record low approval ratings. Trust in the government is dwindling, and people are starting to look elsewhere. The media's trying to convince you that they're not, but let's just be honest. You and I both know we're starting to look at other places. We're starting to look at Constitutional Party, Green Party, whatever you're looking at. You're starting to shop, and so am I, to be honest with you. And I know that just irritated a lot of people, but I am too. And today we're welcoming presidential candidate, former two-time governor of New Mexico, Gary Johnson. Mr. Johnson, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, Josh. Great to be on with you.
Well, it is great to have you.
I'm running for the Libertarian nomination for president, and having been running on the Republican side up until now, I kind of find this liberating. And I think the majority of Americans fall in the broad category of classical liberal, the notion that less government is the best government, and the notion when it comes to your and my life, you know what? Government shouldn't be telling you or I what we can or can't do in the bedroom.
And I think you nailed it. I think you hit it right on the head, because for me, the media and the two parties keep trying to tell me what the most important issue is. And you know what? Nobody's political website is going to say we want to kill children and bomb everybody. So everybody's website's going to say something good. What it comes down to is the person running, right?
I completely agree. And in this case, you've got to recognize what the problems are, and you've got to come up with a solution to go along with those problems. And then you got to have a resume to suggest that you'll actually doggedly pursue that agenda.
Well, that's one of the things that I think is gaining you so much attention, and I think your traction is going to continue to increase as we get closer to November here, because what you're offering is that resume. There's always been somebody, whether it's Roseanne Barr or whoever, who's deciding, yeah, I want to run for president. But in reality, they don't really have a snowflake's chance. But you have been a two-time governor. You ran as a Republican. So the obvious question, sir, is what made you perform the transition that a lot of citizens are now experiencing? What made you leave the Republican Party and go Libertarian?
Well, I think that Ron Paul and I, for the most part, are delivering the same message. Although Ron Paul and I have differences, I don't think they're great. And I think that message and that agenda really ends when Ron Paul is not the nominee. And I just, although I would love to see him as the nominee, I don't think that's going to happen. So this is kind of carrying on a message that I think is really important for America. And Communications 101, Ron Paul isn't the only one that's talking about a liberty and freedom agenda. I am, and I think there are thousands of others that have given the opportunity would do the same thing. But you know what? As human beings, when we hear the same message, if you will, from two different people, it's said in a different way, and it begins to get understood better when you hear it from more sources. So I really think this is the direction that the country is ultimately going to head. And first ones over the hill get shot. If that's the case, that's fine, because it is about the message. It's about the message. It's about an agenda that really does fix America and get us back to what we've always been about, which is liberty and freedom, classical liberal. Look, less government, best government. And government, don't be telling me what I can or can't do in my own life as long as I'm not doing any harm to anybody else.
Well, I really believe that the most important issue coming into this election cycle isn't the economy, it isn't foreign wars, it's freedom. And I think that's the message that the Libertarian Party and Libertarian-minded people are really starting to connect with. It's because if we don't have freedom is the foundation for everything. Your economic policy is determined on your freedom, your foreign policy is determined on your freedom. So from a freedom perspective, what would you offer candidates that say a Mitt Romney or what we're being pushed as a Mitt Romney, Newt Gingrich? What would you offer as alternatives?
Well, Josh, I'm maybe going to argue with you a little bit here that freedom may have a basis in just having a system, in this case, having the United States of America. I don't think we're immune to the mathematics of us continuing to borrow and print money to the tune of 43 cents out of every dollar that we're spending. So first and foremost, I think we need to balance the federal budget, or we're going to find ourselves without a country. And what is this country? Well, this country is about liberty and freedom. It's about gun rights. It's about gay rights. It's about slashing welfare spending, but it's also about slashing warfare spending. So I think it really all ties together, and it starts with having a country, the United States of America, founded on all the freedoms and liberties that we're ostensibly supposed to have. But the reality is, both parties continue to pass legislation that really infringes on our own abilities to make our own decisions, rules and regulations that, bottom line, they just add time and money to all of our lives in that we have to comply with these rules and regulations, and actually don't make any difference in our lives in any way. They don't make us any safer. They don't make us any secure. All they do is they add more time and more money for us to have to comply with them.
Well, see, so actually you're agreeing with me, because the idea of our economic policy is a restriction on the freedom of the people that burden is then going to be transferred to. Our terrorist policy is then a burden to the people who have to be subjugated to terrorist policies, which have nothing to do with actual security. So the foundation level still has to be freedom, and regardless of the topic, that's where we need to start each topic. How do I enhance the freedom and liberty of the people? Because, for example, the NDAA 2012 or HR 3166, which can legally determine that you are no longer a citizen of the United States, if things like that pass, it doesn't matter if we're spending money in Iraq, because the people no longer exist.
No, I did not mean for 1 second to disagree with any of your premises. You're right on. This is the notion of the Department of Homeland Security. One of the distinctions I had as governor of New Mexico, I may have vetoed more legislation than the other 49 governors in the country combined. I vetoed 750 bills. Well, what's the implication of that if you're president of the United States? I would have never established the Department of Homeland Security. I would have never signed off on the Patriot Act. I think that what it does is it burdens all of us, and we're losing our civil liberties on a regular and daily basis, not making us any safer, any more secure, just adding a whole lot of time and a whole lot of money, and for many of us, actually end up in detainment. And of course, you're talking about the authorization, the National Defense Appropriations Act, that allows for detainment of individuals without being charged, U.S. citizens. Well, this is why we fought wars.
Well, exactly. And isn't that really the definition of tyranny, is when our politicians view us as the threat? When politics has to compete with freedom in order for its own relevance to continue, the country has a problem. And
that's exactly, we have a problem. You know, we're in deep trouble right now, and it starts with the fact that we're printing as much money as we're printing.
Well, Governor, hold on 1 second, because we're in trouble too. We're up against a break, but we'll continue this conversation right after this. Don't go anywhere, folks. We are talking to two-term governor, former governor of New Mexico, Gary Johnson. Now, before the break, we were talking about this transition, this need to fight for freedom. I think, sir, that a lot of people are waking up to the fact that both parties are essentially they're lying to them. Neither one of them are liberal as they claim, or as conservative as they claim, or really have the best interest in heart of the people, which means a lot of people are looking towards options like you. And the obvious question then is, when you're running your campaign, do you really expect to win the White House, or are you running it to promote a message instead?
Well, so Josh, I'm running for the Libertarian nomination. There are 10 other candidates running for the Libertarian nomination. I think that given the discontent in this country right now, that there is a very real possibility that the Libertarian nominee could poll at 15%, and potentially poll at 15% and get on stage in the national debates against President Obama and Mitt Romney, believing that Mitt Romney is going to ultimately be the nominee. Given the discontent that exists in this country and the importance of this agenda and this message, I think anything can happen. So I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't think that there was the outside chance of actually winning. But given what I just told you, there is a real opportunity, I think, here to change the world a little bit, and I'm excited by the whole thing.
Well, I think three people who are helping your cause more than anybody would be Rick Santorum, Mitt Romney, and Newt Gingrich, because these three are the very people that the Tea Party or the freedom-minded people were rejecting only 4 short years ago. I mean, these are rejects that they puked back up and put back into the cycle. So I think that their efforts from the GOP are actually leading people towards you. But in that vein, let's say somebody said, okay, I get it, I'm kind of disenfranchised, but the Libertarians, aren't the Libertarians the one that want to push drugs, or they're so liberal that the world would look like a Nancy Pelosi ran state? What is the basis? Why should people vote for a Libertarian?
Well, a couple things here. The ACLU, I'm going to unabashedly promote myself here. I'm sorry, but you asked me on, and so I'm going to do that. But a couple of weeks ago, the ACLU came out with a report card on all the presidential candidates. Perfect score was 24. Rick Santorum got a 0. Mitt Romney got a 0. Newt Gingrich had 4 out of 24. President Obama had 16 out of 24. Ron Paul had 18 out of 24. And Gary Johnson had 21 out of 24. I just get back to the notion that I think that most of us are fiscally conservative. I am fiscally conservative to the core. But coupled with that, I'm also, and I'm speaking with a broad brush, I'm also socially liberal. I don't think the government should be involved in making decisions that only lie with you and I. So I advocate legalizing marijuana. Look, control it, regulate it, tax it. I'm one of 100 million Americans who've smoked marijuana. Do we really want to imprison, and given the wrong set of circumstances, 100 million Americans behind bars for doing this? And by the way, it'll never be legal to smoke pot, become impaired, and get behind the wheel of a car. A libertarian is going to say that you have to be personally responsible for your own actions, but that you should have the liberty and the freedom to make decisions in your life as long as they don't adversely affect other individuals. So not putting other individuals in harm's way or doing harm to other individuals. And that, I think, is the fundamental role of government in a context of not spending more money than what we take in, because the result of that is going to be a collapse of the government, which I also think is just baked in. Bad news, we're in deep trouble. Good news, we can fix this. We went to the moon, we can balance the federal budget.
Well, I think one of the things you're doing, and people like you who are also running for alternative party nominations, is you're redefining terms. Because one of the things you said was socially liberal. Most people, when they think socially liberal, they don't think individual independence. They think government mandated actions, because that's the definition it has kind of attached itself to. And in reality, what you're advocating is constitutional freedom for the individual, not really the media's definition of socially liberal. And I think that's what attracts people, because I view what you're representing as really what traditional conservatism would represent. Get responsibility back in the hands of people, get the financial house in order, give the states the authority to run as little sovereign places like they're supposed to be, and then just let everybody be free. That seems to be a message that attracts a lot of people. And I would assume, correct me if I'm wrong, but I would assume that that's something that you're hitting home, that people who are supporting you, that's why, correct?
Well, people don't really understand that we do not live in a democracy. We live in a republic that's governed by a constitution. So we are a country that's governed by laws, not by you and I allowing ourselves to vote ourselves a raise. I think the problem with the two-party system right now is that the Democrats think that we can vote ourselves a raise. That has us in the pickle that we're in. And Republicans, because we're a country of laws governed by the Constitution, Republicans don't recognize that they can actually change the law, that there is bad law, and that the law is not the supreme Constitution is the supreme law of the land, but in the context of laws, we pass some bad laws. And in this case, they infringe on our personal freedoms as opposed to protecting us from those that would do us harm.
Well, I would say that the Constitution was set up to tell the government what it can and cannot do, not to tell the people what it can and cannot do. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I would. I completely agree with that. And that
so then
we have a constitutional form of government. We are a republic governed by a constitution. We are a country governed by laws.
So then would you look at the current... Since we know who the Democratic nominee is going to be, we can kind of put that aside for a second. Looking at the selection that the GOP has, would you actually see then that somebody like a Mitt Romney or Newt Gingrich, who support things like the NDAA, Indefinite Detention Act, would you see them as an asset to the Constitution or a threat to the Constitution?
Well, I'm back to the American Civil Liberties Union, the ACLU, dedicated to the Constitution, dedicated to the Bill of Rights, dedicated to civil liberties. Mitt Romney, 0. Rick Santorum, 0. Newt Gingrich, 4. This is out of 24. I think there's the verdict. No, it's big government. It's both parties that have put this country up for sale. The root of all evil. Politicians with their hands out to grant you your special favor, your special dispensation, your comeuppance to get you ahead in a system as opposed to creating a system that is level for all of us, giving us all equal opportunity. This country is moving further and further away from it. Crony capitalism. It's all about what you pay for your advantage.
Well, Governor Johnson, I wish you luck winning your party's nomination. I also wish your party luck in gaining support from more people who feel disenfranchised by the system. And most importantly, I wish the people luck who are searching for a place to call home when it's their future at stake.